So there was going to be 2 parts to this video, but it went on a bit longer than intended. So this is now part 3.
Yeah, well, it's part of a trilogy, really, a musical trilogy that I'm doing in D minor.
And this includes some footage of chasing onto the bunch after you might have just seen in part 2. If you watched, we separated over the first KOM at 35 k's to go. There's still 230 k odd, and the little bit of brief footage that you see now sets the scene for really the rest of the race. I've only got about an hour of video footage due to the battery, but enjoy. There was going to be 2 parts, there's now 3, but oh well, it'll be good. And stay tuned afterwards for a little bit of a chat and analysis of some of the key tips I have and I've learned from 2 Warnies on what to prepare, what to bring along. Okay, enjoy the video. Catching these guys. Here's Paddy again, my teammate. They're waiting for me. Smart. Get more people together and work together. Might be a couple of others coming. That's done really well because he was sick for a week or so and off the bike, and he's still come to the Warnie. That's pretty brave. But he's done a fair bit of work before that. We do a bit of training together. He's riding really well, so here he is on the front. So we're just talking about whether to wait for others. Some of these guys we rode with for most of the day. And for some reason, this bridge lane rider in the NRS National Road Series is back here with us. He must have had a mechanical because he's got no business being this far back in the race, but somehow he was, and he was angry. He didn't want to be there. Fair enough too. So he was dishing out the orders as you would, and he wanted back on. Now, I was in a similar position last year when I first did this race, and we never saw the bunch again, and at this point I didn't expect that we would see the bunch again because they're out of sight. But this young bloke here, he was pretty determined, and he had us working, rolling turns. Probably more work than we should have done at this point, given our level. But believe it or not, we actually caught a big bunch. I don't know if it was the lead bunch, it probably wasn't, but it was a big bunch ahead. May possibly have been the main bunch behind the breakaway. That was not for a while. I don't have footage of that because the camera battery didn't last that long. But we actually did catch the group ahead, which was pretty amazing in my mind. But at this point, I really didn't want to be working this hard with this bloke, but he was pretty desperate to get back. Average speed, my average speed for this year's race is about 73.5 k's an hour. It was slower than last year, which was 40 k's an hour. Because at this point last year I had a bunch of riders, including a number of A graders who for some reason were back with us, and we managed to form a pretty big bunch that got us to the finish. And that's really important, because if you're in a small bunch, and we were in a pretty small bunch this year, getting back to the finish, riding with them to the finish, it's really hard work because you're on the front a lot, you're rolling over a lot. So that really explained why I got a medal last year, and an official finish 37 minutes down on the winner. This year I was an hour, 1 minute and 46 seconds, and it was that 1 minute and 46 seconds that cost me a medal, because this was the size group that we had for most of the day. Now, pretty funny, because we actually did get this group back on in the bunch again, as I mentioned, but it was such hard work that when the bunch accelerated again, we could not hold them, except for the NRS guy here from Bridge Lane, of course. But that's the difference. So this is pretty hard work, and I can't keep this up. Eventually we decided between ourselves that, yeah, a bit sorry that our friend from the NRS was a bit behind, but we weren't going to kill ourselves this early in the race. But it paid off. We got back on. I don't have footage of that, unfortunately. He's pretty angry. Something must have gone wrong for him. We're absolutely flying here. So a quick word, thanks to our sponsors, Ascent Cycle Repair. If you're in Wilston in Brisbane, Ascent Cycles is the go-to for particularly your repair needs of your bike. So thanks very much to Ryan and the crew down there. Right, so I'm talking to my dad, who was my feeder for the day. Much appreciated, did a great job. And we're going to hear from my dad just a little bit. He's going to tell us something about how he experienced the day. So, Dad, how did you go?
Hi. I did the feed replenishment for Julian, and I did 2 of them in succession. And it was all pretty straightforward and pretty simple, but there is a bit of a drama if you're doing 2 successive feed stops, because when you finish giving the kid, the rider, his feed bag, and then you go back and recover the old bag, then you have to go to the next feed stop, and in practice you have to then beat the leading riders to the next stop. Since you can't usually go on the same track as the route of the bike race, it's quite a challenge to go through a longer back road route and beat the leading pack to the next feed stop. Invariably, in sometimes you then get blocked by the police or the marshals, who are anticipating the arrival of the leading pack. So you're then stuck and you can't get to the next feed stop in time. That's about the main drama I experienced. Apart from that, it's not too bad.
So, Dad, you're quite old. How did you find spending all day driving around waiting for me?
Well, I'm blessed to be still fit at the age of 74, and yeah, when there's no real big issue for age. You have to drive pretty niftily through the back roads, though. You can't stop for a drink or something. You have to really beat it. I just followed a group of them who let's say, didn't muck around when they were driving through the back roads. No, but that's fine. I'm used to that.
Well, there you have it. That's my dad's valuable experience. For you need someone to feed you at the Warnie. You can't last on your own, and couldn't have done it without you. So, thanks very much for that wonderful insight.
No worries. Do it again next year.
Thanks, Mum.
Right.
So this is just a quick look at my bike setup. My bike, this is my second bike. I've actually lucky enough to have my folks living down in Melbourne, so I'll leave this down here. But what's important here is the setup. So if you're looking at doing the Warnie for the first time, standard bike. But what I've got in here is 2 tubes, CO2 gas, two gas canisters. I actually bring a multi-tool. That's probably over the top. You won't have a lot of time. Some people bring spare wheels, but if you're not in the NRS, I reckon good luck getting them, because who knows where the spare car would be with them. So I bring spare tubes, tyre levers and CO2 canisters to change. Put them in a saddlebag. It can get quite warm in February for the Warnie, so make sure you've got enough fluids. I probably didn't have enough yesterday, so 2 water bottles. This is a feed bag that I would bring. I've taken about 1 gel, 1 bar an hour. That's about 60 grams of carbs, plus 2 bottles with some powder in it to get some more carbs and obviously fluids. And I'll get my old man was helping me, and I took 2 feeds. There were 3 official feed stations. 2 feeds was enough food for me. It was pretty much on the margin for fluids, so I had to be pretty hydrated when I started. And if you haven't done feeding before, I recommend practicing it to ensure that your feeder knows what they're doing and you know what you're doing in grabbing the feed bag. But particularly a couple of tips with feeding is I recommend to ensure that your feeder is highly visible. It's really hard to see them when you've got a lot of people who are standing around and you're coming at them at 40 k's an hour. So you want to, my dad had helium balloons this year because I couldn't see him last year and I had to stop at one point, which really hurts to get back on. So he had helium balloons this year, which were fantastic, so visible. High vis clothing helps. And yeah, you just want to be able to go past, grab the bag and keep going. You don't want to have to put in huge efforts to chase on. That'll really hurt you. So that's just a little bit about setup. So I look at the results of the race, and starting off, so 265.9 k's. Cam Scott won 6 hours 7 minutes. So that's getting pretty close to 44 k's an hour average. Now, to get it recorded as a finisher at the Warnie, you need to be within 1 hour of the winner. So that leaves 7 hours 07 finish time cut off. You can see that there's a big front bunch and then it starts to tail off. Getting out here, 100 riders. And once you're behind the winners and you're in the smaller groups, you're doing it tough. And you can see me down here. That's me, Julian, in this bunch here at 1 hour 1:51. So I've missed out by shy on 2 minutes. That's about 37.5 k's an hour average for us. A fair bit slower than the winners, and there's quite a few DNFs. So this year there are 136 classified finishes. I think last year I was about 150th. So smaller numbers this year, a lot of DNFs. Pretty tough to get there within the time limit, and I was a couple of minutes out, which is pretty annoying, but that's the way it goes. What can you do? All right, so just a quick shout out to a few people who've helped me along the way. I'm only a C-grade rider, but you can't race the Warnie without quite a lot of help, actually. Firstly, Ascent Cycles Repair and the Ascent Cycles Racing team, sponsors, fantastic help. If you're in Wilston, Brisbane, head down to Ascent Cycles and see Ryan. Huge thanks to my dad, Romano, for the big effort he's made in feeding me. It's not just on the day, it's for a lot longer than that. He's got to put up with quite a lot of logistical demands from me. So, Dad, thanks heaps for your help. My mum, Sess, and my wife, Mish, my long-suffering wife, Michelle. So, fantastic. Mum's sitting across me at the moment doing a crossword. A special thanks to Kat Carter Physio. If you're in Melbourne and you're a cyclist and you need help with physio, go and see Kat Carter. She's fantastic. I broke my hip last year in May after doing my first Warnie, and I didn't know that I'd be back riding competitively for a while. And with the program that Kat put me on, she was fantastic. She's a cyclist. She specialises in helping active cyclists with physio, and that was brilliant. A lot of rehab, hard work, but huge thanks. Mark O'Gara for the camera. So thanks, Mark. He was out there at the start, and he puts up a lot of race footage and supporting the local scene. So thanks, Mark. Cowboy Pat, I've done a lot of training and racing with, who's been huge inspiration to me. Absolute killer on the bike. And the Ascent Cycles teammates that I've got who've been brilliant for motivation and riding partners. So thanks, guys. And lastly, but not leastly, the Powercore Melbourne to Warrnambool Race Committee. I've done a little bit of help with race organisation, and it is a huge job, and many of them do it for free. So I just really want to say thanks to everyone involved in that, because that is those are the unsung heroes by miles. So thanks, guys.